everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. I have been going through parts slowly from that San Francisco run last Thanksgiving, and I've come across something that always confused me, and I don't know that this video is going to shed any light on it, but we're going to talk about it. So in 1992, May of 1992 to be precise, a service bulletin was released by Homelite indicating that they had a new automatic oil pump assembly for the Super XL automatic. And the kit that it was released under, A-00007, included a new pump, a new worm gear, new mounting screws, and of course the O-rings and the felt seal that goes around the worm gear itself. So the automatic oil pump gets a new part number, the worm gear gets a new part number. Okay, the oil pump, when you look at it, it's really obvious. The worm gear, not so much. And I'm not convinced, personally, looking at them as I have, that there's any damn difference. But we'll kind of go through it and then try to figure out why. And I don't have the answer. If I was somebody who operated the way many people on YouTube did, I would put some clickbait thumbnail up about, "This is why Homelite went bankrupt." I'm not going to do that because, well, I hate the clickbait thumbnails that are generally a lie. They're just meant to pull you in. Do I think some of what we're going to talk about is why Homelite ended up failing as a company in the end? Yes, I do. 100% do. But let's get into this. Let's look at the pump first. We'll compare it to an older pump. We'll see what's up. Okay. Try to ignore the exploded Husky 460 Rancher over there. We don't want to talk about that right now. So this pump, this kit, A-00007-A. Again, this bag is dated 1997. That is before John Deere sold Homelite. You can still see the John Deere logo and the Green Machine logo on this bag. So the obvious difference is this is a plastic pump housing. Okay, you don't have a set screw up here to hold the plunger in place. This is some sort of a metal pin. You do have the same O-rings, same part number, 274. And I'm not going to remember this felt seals number off the top of my head, but it is the exact same part number too. I mean, they couldn't change it much because the intent of that memo was that this would replace the old metal oil pump. The plunger is still metal. There's a metal end cap here. You can see the worm gear in there. Hopefully I'm getting a good focus on that. So, yeah, what's up? Why? Well, I have to assume that making this out of plastic was a hell of a lot cheaper than the old aluminum style. Why else would you do it? I don't know. I have no good answer there. I always thought that perhaps this was, it's a weight savings. But we're going to find out that's just not true. So that's the full contents of the kit right there, plus an instruction sheet. And the instruction sheet, tells you to disconnect the spark plug before performing any maintenance because the saw might randomly start. We all know that's not going to happen, but, safety stuff. So they're saying discard old pump assembly, blah, blah. New pump assembly consists of one pump, 3 hex head screws, 1 worm gear, left-hand thread, 1 felt seal, 2 O-rings. See installation. Okay. So this does not show the part numbers. The memo does, and I will put a link to the memo in the description of this video. I say it's in the 1992 ones, so it's not super hard to find. So let's do a little figuring here. Okay, obviously they have to mount in the same damn spot. So the shape is a little bit different. Obviously there's no retainer plate. This has just got a metal plug that's holding that in. So this is not going to be serviceable. If this takes a dump, I think it's done at that point. I mean, let's face it, we were already well into the throwaway society in the 90s. That's part of why Kmart, Walmart, all those stores really were able to thrive in the early days of a whole bunch of imported cheap crap. I'm not going on a epic rant or statement about that. It's reality. We all know it. So, again, the retainer for the plunger itself went from the screw here to just this simple pin. So, as I said before, I thought, alright, maybe this is weight savings. This worm gear looks identical to the old one. It feels identical to the old one. My guess and my belief is there is zero difference between the old and the new worm gear. What they didn't want to see happening was an old worm gear that might be already screwed up being applied to a new pump, which would then take it out, and somebody would say, well, your pump was defective. Personal guess, I think I'm probably right about that. Alright. New worm gear. 1.3 ounces. This is the scale I use for shipping packages out, so it has to be pretty damn accurate, because I don't get packages returned saying, hey dummy, you didn't put enough postage. Old worm gear. 1.3 ounces. Not a lot of difference there. Old pump. 2.8 ounces. New pump. 1.9 ounces. So there is a weight savings there, but I would really hope that this change was not made to a legacy saw like the Super XL solely to save 1 ounce. There is not a person on this planet that could pick up a saw with either of these pumps and know the difference. Bull. Don't tell me you can, because that's bull. I don't want to hear that. I believe it's manufacturing cost. 100% believe it. Now, I'm not just saying that based on my jaded view of the way economics has evolved. Not just. I got a little fact to back that up. Excuse me. So in 2000, these parts were still available, despite the fact that Homelite had been sold off. The new Chinese owners had not discontinued product support for everything yet. That was only another year or so away. So in 2000, that kit that we just looked at was $24.64. That whole kit, pump, worm gear, O-rings, seals, okay, $24.64. Thinking about what I was making, I was still a student in college in 2000. I'd have been okay with that. If on my Super XL that I had at the time, if the pump had failed and I had to buy that kit, I'd have been okay with that. Okay. In 2000, the worm gear alone, under the old part number, $12.57. So literally half the price of the whole kit itself. So if I'm correct, and there's no difference in those worm gears, that implies that the pump itself would only be around $12.50. Does plastic make that big of a difference? I don't know. The old style aluminum bodied oil pump was also still available. Stock had not been exhausted, and when I read this price, you'll understand why, because nobody would have paid this. 2000, the A-00007-B oil pump. This little critter right here. $85.43. So if I had walked across the street to Twin Furs Saw Shop in Bandon, which is where I would have gone at that time, to buy an oil pump, and Margin Leroy had quoted me 85 bucks for it, I would have laughed and walked out. And found a carcass saw for 10 bucks and pulled it off of that. What in the hell? So, yeah. What's up with that? I don't know. I can tell you that from looking at parts prices over the years, I use the 2000 price manual a lot, especially if there's nothing. If I have a part that nobody else has out there, I'll go look and go, okay, what the hell was it in 2000? And in some cases, I look at the price and go, there's no way I can ask that price. A starter housing for a Super XL. I don't have the true number off the top of my head, but that's the kind of stuff that you were seeing 50, 60, 70, a throttle handle, you know, the clutch was probably up in the $69, $70 range in 2000. It's like, what are you guys thinking? So that's why I said at the beginning of this video that if I was clickbaiting the crap out of it, this is why Homelite went bankrupt right there. They didn't go bankrupt, but they were a money loser. Now, I'll be very precise about this. I've read the articles. John Deere claims that Homelite was never profitable at the time that they owned them. Okay? As I understand it from what I've been read, the same was true for Textron before Textron sold Homelite to John Deere. So allegedly, Homelite as a whole just wasn't profitable for anybody who owned them, basically from the mid-80s on, from what I've been able to read. Okay? So, yeah, and I can understand why. But what this highlights is something that we're seeing right now nationally, the turmoil around whether things will be built in America, whether there'll be tariffs on stuff that isn't. Again, I'm making no judgments on any of it, but we know it costs more to manufacture things here in the United States because we have different regulations. We have a different wage structure. You know, we have different overtime law. We have overtime laws, okay? A lot of places that manufacture really cheap stuff don't have any of that, and there's a cost to that. We typically, as American consumers, don't see those costs. We don't see the human costs behind them. We don't see all the other things that are behind that because we just walk into a store, we see something at a price that we like, and we buy it. Again, no judgment on that, but it's a reality. So, Homelite was still employing a lot of people in North Carolina and other locations. A lot of stuff was still produced domestically. Is that why an aluminum oil pump cost 85 bucks? Maybe. I don't know. But that's at least a possibility. So that business model was struggling hardcore. Again, my wage structure in 2000, I would not have paid that. I don't know anybody who would. I know for a fact I could have bought a whole new Super XL from the True Value Hardware in Bandon in 2000 for 400 some bucks. And I kicked my own butt. I didn't have the money then. Okay, I was in college. I didn't have the money then. But I could have bought it right off the shelf. Brand new. Sat there for like 3 years before it sold. So, anyway, we kind of got off topic here. If you see, and yes, I have 2 of these now for sale. If you see this kit out there on eBay in my store and you need an oil pump, I have no reason to believe that it won't last. The late model saws were produced with them. You know, the old blue, the blue Super XL, the big red. They were all produced with these, and they all still have them on there. You know, they work. But now, you know a little more of the backstory behind them, at least from what I can dig up. And you've heard some of the pricing and some of my theories about perhaps why Homelite as a company just didn't continue. Hope this video has been of interest. Catch you guys in the next one.